button if I can remember if I press all the right buttons in order. So, if you're watching on YouTube, thanks for joining. Good to see y'all. We'll just wait on a few people to jump on.
You're thinking, Sherwood's not here. No, Sherwood is here.
Right. I'm going to have to figure out something to do. Is it next week that I have to do my own show?
No, next week I will be here.
Okay. It's the week after that.
That's why I was asking you if, like, is the first swap next week or the week after I take a week off?
So the week
because I need to try to get a guest for next week, obviously.
Yeah. The week that you're gone. The week that you're gone is when I'll do the first one.
Okay, cool.
Anyway. Cool. Raja, what's happening?
Raja?
He's right. YouTube isn't down. You know what's funny? Sherwin came in here at, 8:40 and informed me that social networks were down. Holly, were you aware of all that?
No.
What was even
well,
funnier...
good, then I'm not the only one.
Yeah, what was even funnier about it is you were watching a clip about Bill Burr, and he's got a really funny joke about social media that we will not tell.
Yeah.
We'll have to go find his special from the Tabernacle in Atlanta about 4 years ago.
Yeah, so that's that's funny.
All right, Rusty's getting all the
see.
digital stuffs set up. I should probably be dialed into our own YouTube show. That would probably be the right thing to do.
Good idea. Thank God I don't post my dinners on Instagram, right? So, yeah, Sherwin came in and told me that Facebook and Instagram have been down. Are they still down? I don't know the answer to that. Facebook.com.
I think it depends on
like
which part of the country you're in, I think.
Instagram.
The Grams.
.com?
Yeah. I told somebody, I was like, well, it just makes it easier on me because I don't have to try to market in 3 different
no kidding.
friggin' social spaces. I'll just stick to the Twitters.
Yeah, that all looks like it looks like it's all running for me, although I have an Instagram account, like I have a username and password, and I think that's the only thing I have on Instagram.
I don't know, so maybe we should say this, Rusty can stop me, but what was the reason why you had to drive back from Daytona?
Well, I actually live outside Tampa, and I was at the Motorsports Hall of Fame induction last night, which was really cool. I was there with Jimmy Johnson and Tony Stewart were there, and Dario Franchitti. It was really fun.
That makes sense. I saw a lot of cool photos from that.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Cool.
Let's see. I think, we've
Sarah,
got a few people on.
Brett.
Sarah, Brett.
Oh, man, speaking of mullets, we got Brett.
That's funny. Raja. So folks are joining. Folks are watching.
If you don't already have it, put in a note to ask Holly if she's going to Sebring, and we won't say it now, and we can talk about Sebring.
Sebring.
There's always lots to talk about at Sebring.
Well, I heard that. I saw a really neat picture. I'll just pile that into whenever we get to that in the show sheet.
Sure. I wrote a boatload of notes.
Sweet. We're going to have to go fast, Holly.
Way too many notes.
But you still talk as long as you want, and we'll whack the things. Rusty's really good about whacking the show. He's got a really good feel for how long we're going.
Yeah.
And waxing the segments that don't matter as much. So you still just talk as much as you want.
Yeah. And we'll definitely let you go at the top of the hour. So before we do, thank you so much for being on and joining us and hanging with the, ragtag team here compared to the more professional things I'm sure you are affiliated with on a more daily basis.
I told you, I'm honored.
You know what?
You guys would even have me on.
At least now I won't be afraid when I walk into the MIS Media Center to say, hey.
That's right.
Because I was last year. I was like, look at all these people. I know who they are, but I'm so afraid to say, hey. I'm pretty shy, actually, believe it or not.
Nicest group of people ever that work in NASCAR.
I watched about half of the Cup race with Jeff Gluck sitting right next to me. We were just chatting. I mean, it's so cool.
Jeff was excited when he heard you were coming on the show.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, that'll be awesome. So
that's nice.
Yeah.
I was excited.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, lots of people are excited you're here. Let's go ahead and get audio cranked up so people will get their iTunes experience tomorrow morning on the way to work.
Yep, let's do it. So here we go. I'll say I'm recording now, and when I say the word now, that's when we may go away for a little while, but rest assured we'll be right back. So here goes nothing. Holly, you ready?
I'm ready.
Sherwin, ready?
Ready.
We are recording. No, that's not the record button. We are recording now. Yo!
Thank you, Sydney.
That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 186. It's Wednesday, March 13th, 2019. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace. I'm in the PETM Podcast Studio with Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's up, dude?
I think we have said 1,000 times now, and I don't think it can be oversaid, that the number of people in this community that are willing to say yes to do this crazy hour with us is so amazing that we're just probably going to keep doing it.
Why not? Why not? Before we start that, y'all know what the deal is. This podcast is sponsored by you. That's right. You go to patreon.com/PTM, join the What You Drink Club for as little as $1 a month and get that free koozie. Best part is, every cent in 2019, we're donating once again to sponsoring drivers. So join the PTM Posse today. Be a part of the sport you love. This week's show brought to you by our official sponsors.
One breath.
At the $5 and up per month level. There's a lot of pressure here. Here we go. Laura Henshaw, Aaron Bearden, Robert Kepler, Coleman Clam, Eric Kepner, Ryan Kiefer, Patrick Cleary, Jeff Brown, Brendan Crowd, Kathleen McDonald, Stacey Wright, Brandon Carl, Billy Workman, Rika Porter, Jumpy Bob, Les Miller, Tommy Wood, Julie Bosley, John Pearson, Eddie Grid III, Yunker Motorsports, Jason Rudd, David Mullins, Patrick Johnson, Brett Morris, Gail Delaney, and Crystal Smoke. I had some left in the tank, dude.
You did. You could have done about 5 more, I think.
We want to welcome to the PETM Posse also Kevin Teal. You might recognize that name,
I wonder if he's from that place up there in the Pocono Mountains.
In the old Triangle region. Yeah. So he was on our show last year at some point, representing Pocono Raceway, and we met him again in person in Atlanta.
Yep.
And yeah, he's now a part of the PETM Posse.
Patreon.
So, thank you, sir. So, with that, let's get this
Without
thing.
further ado.
Yeah, let's get this thing started and going. I'm going to bring the Sydney down. I'm going to bring somebody else up. Tonight's guest, she's a sports writer who reports on wire services for NASCAR and IMSA. She's been in the industry for decades at this point, working across the country. You can find her on Twitter @_Holly Cain. It's Holly Cain. Holly, what's happening?
How are you guys?
We are awesome. We're doing great. It's a nice Wednesday? Whatever day it is.
It is Wednesday.
It's usually a Tuesday for us.
We usually go Tuesday, but I had to go to North Carolina for work.
Like Kakalaki. You know what? My wife just read the other day. She goes, "What on earth is North Kakalaki?" She was reading something. I can't remember what she was reading.
My God.
She goes, "What is Kakalaki?"
And that was like vernacular when we were like 9.
Well, I mean, she grew up in the Northeast.
Well, right.
and
She grew up in
whatnot,
Connecticut until whatever age she came down here.
So, yeah. So, Holly, are you familiar with the Kakalakis?
Let me tell you, I live just north of the Everglades, and there's a whole lot of towns that sound like that. So it's probably someplace in Florida with that name, too.
That's true.
No doubt. Oh, you live. Oh, yeah. So you're like in that area of Florida where the hillbilly headlines they reign supreme.
Wow.
A Florida man.
Yeah.
Yes, they do, but I want to point out for the record, most of the time those people aren't even from Florida. It's just happening in Florida. That's how we defend it.
Well, yeah, you don't have to defend it.
Oh, no.
There is nobody outside of that triangle between Tallahassee, Jacksonville, and D-Land. There's nobody that's actually from Florida.
Well, I guarantee if any one of maybe I can think of 8 or 10 of my relatives go to Florida, they would become Florida men.
Yeah.
They're going to be in the paper for doing something wacko. No doubt about it. So, Holly, we start this thing off the same way every week. What are you drinking tonight?
Well, tonight I'm drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper.
Oh, you've got
last
friends.
Night I was drinking a nice glass of red wine.
Excellent.
Red
You've got
wine's
friends
good.
in the Diet Dr. Pepper department. Our YouTube chat is about to blow up with that. I know because who was it last time that had, or the last time someone had Diet Dr. Pepper? And I mean,
Well, so we've got a couple
like
of people
that's
that
a thing.
follow pretty regular from Texas, of course. But I think Roger is a fan
might
of
have been
the DP as
thinking of
well.
that. Yeah. Sherwin, what do we
It's
got
big
here?
in Texas. Dr. Pepper, very big in Texas.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So, Holly, what I typically like to do is have some beverage that relates to either something topical or where NASCAR's heading or whatever. So we're headed to Southern California. So I have this beer, this Stone IPA that I'm breaking the fourth wall that you can't see. It's made in San Diego, which is not all that far from Fontana, but
look out.
St. Patty's Day is race day, so I got some Bushmills as well.
Very nice. Yeah. I'm
Very
digging.
nice.
Dude, I got this Sierra Nevada Brute IPA. It's like, it says extra dry IPA. It's a Sierra Nevada thing. It's really tasty. It's
I bet that doesn't suck at
if
all.
you pour it here, I'll pour it and you can try
Is
it.
it brute like champagne? Brute.
Kinda. When you try it, you'll know. You'll go, huh? That is kind of like that. Look how light it is, light colored, but not light.
Super filtered, huh?
Taste. I don't know what they're doing to it. But
yeah, like if you look at this one, how like opaque
oh, yeah.
it is.
Yeah, for sure. So, anyway, give it a try and give it back because I want it. I forgot to bring some more up here. But
that's fun.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
That's like race day drinking right there.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. Holly, we like to start with our new guests by introducing them to the PETM posse. So you're living in Tampa. Did you say Tampa area or?
I live in Lakeland, which is right between Tampa and Orlando.
You know, my dad's side of the family, we're all from Lakeland. I've been to Lakeland every year, if not twice a year, from age 0 through, I would say, about 16 or so. Very familiar with Lakeland over there. Very familiar with the, I think it's, I wonder if it's still there, the Stacy's Buffet. Is that place still there?
Sounds like yes.
Like the building is there.
Okay.
I don't know if it's still.
Oh yeah.
Stacy's.
Boy, we would go down there and we would eat at Stacy's Buffet, and then I tell people all the time. They'll say, "Oh, have you ever been to Disney World?" Or "I've been to Disney World once." I'm like, "I've been to Disney World, I believe, 13 times."
Some of the times.
So I'm familiar with Lakeland, Florida. And matter of fact, my wife's grandparents are in Zephyr Hills, so not that far away either.
Where all that real fine spring water that doesn't taste like limestone comes from.
Yeah. So Holly, tell the
Brian Patty is from Zephyr Hills. Ricky Stenhouse's crew chief.
Huh.
Oh, cool!
I didn't know that.
That's good to know. Good little tidbit.
Yeah. So Holly, why don't you tell the PTM posse what you do for NASCAR and the .com?
Well, right now I'm working for the wire service, so I. For the NASCAR and the IMSA wire service. So I kind of I definitely write all the setup pieces for the races every week and do kind of statistical looks at it. And we send that out to about 200 journalists across the country so that they can look it over. They can use it in whatever they're doing to write about the races that week, or maybe even they just run the story that I've written. And then I will cover a few races, whatever need be. But I've covered the sport since 1990, so I've been around a long time.
I said a couple decades, and we're creeping up on the third one.
Well, technically, 1990 is the last year of the 80s. So,
we're going with that whole what year is the millennium thing?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh man, yeah. For those of you who were around for the 2000 versus 2001,
that happened.
That was like a big argument among the nerderati.
The nerderati. I like that.
Well, wasn't something crazy supposed to happen at midnight when it turned 2000 as well? I remember I was living in Seattle at that point, and we were like, oh, what's going to happen? And we had everyone.
Yeah. All the banks were supposed to shut down. All the, government was supposed to blow up, and the lights were supposed to explode, and all that mess. Y2K.
I set off dynamite in Hancock County that night with some buddies in a creek. Floating in a canoe.
So here's the thing. What that means is somewhere not too far from there, somebody was celebrating New Year's Eve, and they thought, all right, well, this whole Y2K business just ain't, it's not a big deal. And then suddenly at midnight, boom, dynamite.
Well, I don't think where we were. I don't know that many of them knew about what the banking code thing.
They were more mattress financiers.
Perhaps
under the mattress, in the mattress.
I just know
buried
that
in a
I wasn't
jar.
dumb enough to get in the boat while the dynamite was going off.
Good idea. I don't know how we got to all that necessarily, but Holly, talking about wire services, obviously that's a bit different than I would say the traditional, paper journalism. Can you talk about that a bit and what, how does your stuff? I know I think a lot of people see AP Wire has reported blah 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 blah, so you might see stuff from AP or obviously then in sports and NASCAR Wire sort of thing. But how would people see your stuff? Is it mainly through other avenues and outlets, or
like other other newspapers can pick it up? I mean, I've been a journalist since 1990, and written for papers in Tampa, the Dallas Morning News, the Seattle newspaper, AOL, Fox Sports, NASCAR.com. And then just in the last 2 years, I started writing for the wire service. And basically what that means is I've done all the heavy lifting and written the stories, and other newspapers can just use my stories if they want to write about racing. Sometimes they may not have a beat writer or somebody that is specifically, covering the sport. Okay. So they'll just pick up my story. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I've seen my stuff in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, all sorts of places like that.
Seems like that would be as prevalent as it's ever been now as we watch the traveling journalism community within NASCAR and other sports for that matter too. It's not just NASCAR. Kind of really shrink.
Start to contract, yeah.
And do a lot more digital stuff. Would you agree with that?
Right. I would, and I think that's kind of what their reasoning was in having me come over and start doing that. So we'll see. I can remember when I first started covering NASCAR in the 90s, there were probably 30 or 40 people, well, at least 20 of them that went to every single race all over the country. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of changed as the newspaper business has ebbed and flowed on out, unfortunately, to a certain extent.
Well,
yeah. And a lot of it now is covered by, by digital journalists that have websites and do it then. They may or may not travel to all the races. So what I do is basically every week keeping it so if you did need any information, it's certainly there for you. And some outlets use it every week as their primary source. Others might pick it up on a weekend that they weren't sending someone to the race.
Yeah. Compare like writing for the wire service to the journalism stuff that you're doing, that you did for Tampa and Dallas and Seattle and stuff. Is it a different feel, or are you just sort of reporting on the same sort of stuff? I know you said there was more maybe stats and stuff pre-race.
Right. Well, I think the biggest change for me was I was a sports writer, so I covered, the Tampa Bay Bucks, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, the Mariners. I was doing a little bit of that as well as the auto racing. And so that's kind of the biggest change. And I think now what we're trying to do is give them a real intense look at the sport. So they can pick and choose. They could take maybe a feature story, which is more about a personality or, a trend in the sport, or they could take one of my stats packages and really look hard at that, or even just pull a portion out of what I write and write a story off that. It's really meant to make it easier to really inform the journalists, whether they're on the road every week or not, and give them some ideas of whatever the primary stories are.
How hard is it to switch cities like that as a sports writer? You're down there, you're covering the Bucks, and you're covering the Rays, and then suddenly ship off to Seattle, and now it's, I got to figure out what's going on with the Mariners and whatnot. How I don't know, big of a change is that?
It does sound like a big one. When I was working in Tampa, that's when I got the job in Dallas. So it was definitely, as you can imagine, a major switch to go from covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. I mean, in Texas, the Cowboys are the entire universe of everything. So that was a major change. And I wasn't the primary writer, but, I covered all the road games and I'd go out and do stories. In fact, my apartment was right across the street from Valley Ranch, their old headquarters. And that's what they used to joke, In fact, they had a couple of coaching changes while I was there, and they were like, run across the street and see who's pulling up, that kind of thing. So it was awesome, though. I loved it, and I loved the challenge of switching it up, and the vibe was so different in Tampa compared to Dallas and compared to Seattle too. I was lucky to cover the Mariners when Lou Piniella was their manager, and they were just winning all these games. Ichiro had just come over. A-Rod was playing for them at one point, Ken Griffey Jr. So I've been lucky to cover a lot of the big athletes.
Wow. You kind of touched on this. The last thing I wanted to ask you about all that was the fact that, as we keep saying, you reported on sports, but also motorsports all over the country, Tampa, Dallas, Seattle, back to Florida and Daytona. What are some of the similarities and differences in motorsports specifically in those places?
Well, the one thing that I thought was very common, and I don't think people realize, there genuinely is a true desire to have more motorsports coverage everywhere I went. People really love it. And you do know this, I'm sure, from your podcast and the people that watch and interact with you. You know, there are a lot of passionate fans. And I was working in Dallas not soon after the Texas Motor Speedway opened. And there was a lot of activity going on there for sure in the early days. And then in Seattle, there weren't any racetracks necessarily, but I would happen to be there at the time. Holly Cain was making it, was just starting out in the Cup Series. Greg Biffle and Derek Cope had won the Daytona 500, and so it was really great out in Seattle because they'd never really had anyone at that newspaper that was into auto racing, and people would always be so kind. They're like, "Oh my God, we're so excited to have somebody that knows about the sport writing about it and covering it." And they used to have IndyCar races in Vancouver and Portland that I would cover. It was fantastic. It was really good. Definitely a different vibe compared to Tampa, which, you know, we're spoiled with Sebring, the 12 hours of Sebring, which is going on this week, and Daytona's nearby, and Homestead, and then Dallas having their own racetrack at Texas Motor Speedway. So it was kind of a different vibe, but it was definitely intense, and everyone was really enthusiastic about the sport. And I would always get a kick out of being in the locker rooms. You know, there were always cowboys that wanted to talk about racing. Definitely cool. The Seahawks players did all the time, and the Mariners even too. So it was kind of fun. The guys would always kind of, you know, maybe come over during BP and ask me about, you know, whatever's going on with somebody on the racetrack. So I always thought that was cool.
That is cool.
Right? Yeah, well, if you don't remember, you know, it was Troy Aikman and Roger Staubach that started that Hall of Fame racing team that Tony Raines raced for with Texas Instruments was their primary sponsor.
Well, those are a lot of big names right there. Texas Instruments, Tony Raines, and you got Troy Aikman, and who'd you say was you?
Well, Tony Raines, who is Daniel Suarez's spotter now, but he was the driver then.
I was saying, And who were the owners, you said? Troy
Aikman and Staubach.
Oh, and Staubach. Jeez.
Yeah. Just and digging names out of the pile.
They would come and do like go-kart races at Texas Motor Speedway, and I would always think, are you kidding me? Do the Cowboys really want? Because this is when Troy was playing. I'm like, do they really want their court? Do they want Troy Aikman driving in a Legends car at Texas Motor Speedway on a Thursday night? And Troy would always say it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. So that's what he went with.
That's red cred right there. That's how that goes.
Well, let's go ahead and do some analysis. We're going to run through the report card. Here it comes, y'all. Tearing it down for this week. Started at Phoenix. Let's start first period at Phoenix. Sherwin, I have to sneeze. You say something.
Well, I mean, obviously, Kyle Busch did some Kyle Busch things in the Cup race, which is cool. He managed his tires, kinda. He managed lap traffic real good.
Well, you know what was funny to me is that he was so mad last week at himself, at NASCAR, at the car, at the rules package, all that stuff. This week he was kind of, me and you sort of said, and we weren't the only people saying this, that he made a mistake and that cost him in the end. But this time he sort of came around like, yeah, last week was my fault. This week we made it up. Like the fact that he sort of, I guess come to Jesus or whatever you want to call it. He saw that at least. Blaney nearly giving Penske the early playoff sweep there.
Right. I thought the call by Jeremy Bullins to leave him out there was pretty cool. What do you think, Holly?
I agree. I really like Ryan Blaney. I think he is wonderful for the sport. I think he's really talented. And I mean, we are only just tapping into what we're going to see from him, but he is a really great person. He's a smart kid. He gets it. And it's just a matter of time before he wins. It could be absolutely any week. I wouldn't be surprised to see him win this week. Penske's having a very nice start.
Yeah, they had a great start. It's unbelievable, really, that they almost had 3 of the first 4 races won and just, all right, we can coast.
Yeah.
We can do a 3-car test every weekend for the next 22 weeks.
Well, so, and I wrote it, or actually, before I say that, you've mentioned 2 things, Holly. Sherwin's got on a Blaney hat right now, and over my right shoulder is a Casey Cain sort of poster thing. So we're homers with you right there. But I was going to say, imagining, because we've got Major League Baseball opening day in maybe a couple weeks now, 3 weeks,
April 3rd, I think, for the Braves,
coming up soon. Imagine clinching the playoffs that weekend.
Right,
that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd probably you'd probably have to have play
maybe
4 series.
a game,
but like by May 1.
By May 1, you've clinched the playoffs. And not only that, but imagine I don't know, who are your 3 favorite teams, and they all clinch the playoffs or something. Like it's crazy to me. It's such a different dynamic in this sport, I think, right now than others with this playoff format. That, I mean, I know I'm saying clinching it, and people are going to come at me with, well, it's not technically.
Well, I was going to comment on that, but I wasn't going to be an a-hole.
No. The nerderati. Is that what I
the
called it
nerderati?
earlier? We'll come at me
not
for
the
that one,
nerderati. They're all hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, you were saying.
But no, what I was going to say is, so in the same vein of, don't come at me with that we're clinched stuff, but we have raced 4 times, and we have 4 different winners. And that, I think, is going to come up later. Did I write a note for you or no? Are we going to do it now?
Sure.
All right. So, no, it is. It's in it'll be part of the Ask PTM.
Okay, cool.
Well, it'll come up again.
Perfect. Holly, clinching the playoffs in week 1, 2, 3, 4, which these guys have done. What do you think?
Well, what I think is pretty fantastic is it does give them the opportunity change their whole approach and get real aggressive on things. And I think it helps the racing overall because I think it allows them to go for it in situations where maybe other guys that are still trying to get their win and be conservative and get that spot can't do yet. So I just think it creates a whole other element to the racing. And I think it's fantastic. And somebody like Kyle Busch, though, he races like he's had a win every week, right? I mean, that's kind of his style, and he's aggressive and goes for it. But, just from when I started covering racing to having this playoff, the way you qualify for it now, it's amazing. And I think I like to think back and wonder how a lot of those guys in the old days, 80s and 90s and around that time, how they would have handled it. But I think that really it lets those guys start testing really early, though. We haven't been to every kind of track. We haven't been to a real short track yet. So, I mean, there's still some things that they want to find out, but I just think it completely changes the game in terms of the competition and frees people up in a way that maybe they didn't have before.
Yeah, I think the thing that what we'll see is it'll be not a driver doing anything particularly different about how they approach racing their car and giving feedback. I think it'll be crew chiefs. Now, if you've already got a win, you don't pit with 2 laps to go in a segment. Because if you stay out and win that segment, you get a playoff point and you get 10 more points to move to keep moving up the ladder. Maybe you don't get another win, but you got so many points that, at the end, however many people win. So we'll talk about that
the
later
playoff
too.
Points matter.
The playoff points matter, though.
Yeah.
You might start the seed in 12th because you only won 1 race. But if you've got 15 playoff points because you won 15 segments, because you just said, all right, y'all go pit. We're gonna.
Martin Truex Jr.
I was just going to say Martin Truex. I kept watching him do that 2 seasons ago thinking, is somebody not going to catch on to what this deal is, what the strategy is? And really no one else did it.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, and it took us all a whole nother season to look back and go, oh, that's how he did that.
He clinched round 4 of the playoffs by showing up.
And and if you recall, he won he won pretty early. I don't think if you won Vegas or Fontana, I may be confusing last year. I think he won Fontana last year, but they won early
Fontana
enough.
Last year.
Yeah, and so the year before, I don't know which race he won. I think it might have been Vegas. Well, it gave Cole the opportunity to say, if the whole field pits for tires, we're staying out, and we're going to try to get that playoff point. And ultimately, that's how he was able to win the championship.
Yeah,
is by racking up all those points.
Well, and does Penske now, are they able to divert a lot of their resources toward the 12 car and getting him into the playoffs at this point?
I don't even know how much they have to divert yet, because Ryan is just, I think last week was a perfect example. And I was doing some stat works today, and he's pretty good at California. I really think, that there's no need to change the whole deal up quite yet. I think he's going to get in just like he needs to get in. I don't think they'll even have to worry too much about that.
Don't fix what ain't broke right now, for sure.
Yeah, especially the way he was doing it. Are there any, so just winding down the rest of squeezing anything else out of Phoenix at this point, is there any thoughts on the new package here, Sherwin? Is there anything that we need to talk about it, or do we just kind of not really beat that drum no more for a little while?
I think it's been beaten so hard by everybody else that, I mean, I mentioned a couple of topics to you that I was like, I don't want to talk about this, I don't want to talk about that, because everybody else, whether it's Fox and their show that's nightly during the week, or it's NBC and their show, or all the podcasts that are related to everything professionally, and all the podcasts that are, goofy people like us that are just doing this as a hobby. There are dead horses that do not need to be beat. And I think from now, as much as we were apprehensive about this package and how they're going to change so much throughout the year, like every different track's got a little bit different thing going on, I think you just got to watch.
Yeah.
And if
there's something that stands out like a sore thumb that the package really made this happen, then we'll get into it. But
if you start the race banging your pitchfork on stuff, you started in the wrong place. All right, get the scanner on your laptop, get on the Twitter, get the TV fired up. If you don't like Fox's broadcast, turn the TV on mute. Listen to the radio.
Listen to MRN or PRN.
Yeah,
that's right.
There's.
That's right.
There's so many options. If you don't like what you're seeing or hearing, you can switch it up to what you do like.
Yeah. Speaking of switching it up, let's go to second period. Tony Stewart nominated for the Hall of Fame. As I'm reading through this, so Holly, what I do as part of the research, I obviously we're going to talk about last week's race and next week's race and what's going on here and there, blah, blah, blah. But I'm also looking for news, and it has occurred to me that, like, you might have written 3 or 4 out of the 5 or 6 topics that I have, like, just because I'll see it come up, and it's from NASCAR.com, and it says staff writer, or it says from blah 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 wire, and I'm like, I'm probably just reading Holly her stories from this week. So, but
thank you.
You're very welcome. Tony nominated for the Hall of Fame. His last win was in 2016, Sherwin. Like, that was essentially 2 years ago. 2 years and a bit ago. But
so the election actually doesn't happen until January.
So we got a whole nother.
The NASCAR rule of 3 years is in play.
Other nominees: Neil Bonnet, Sam Ard, who so Neil Bonnet we've talked on the show a ton about.
Neil was Dale Earnhardt's best friend.
All the numbers
for all intents and purposes.
Sam Ard, 10 wins in 1983. Only Kyle Busch has ever matched that. 2 Xfinity championships, passed away in 2017. Marvin Panch, 17 career wins, raced with Wood Brothers. Red Vogt, NASCAR's first master mechanic, one of the organizing members, and Jim Paschal. 25 wins. We've talked about him a ton on the show when we did the numbers.
That's right. Holly, so when we hit, when did we start doing that? Like 43?
42, 43, yeah.
Somewhere around in there, we started having a segment where we talked about like the car number and who drove it. And we did that all the way for 102 numbers because of the 01 and the 02, and maybe we did it for 103 with the 09
or something too.
Yeah,
and then went all the way through. So for 110 episodes, we matched the car number with the episode number, and talked about them. So we ended up learning a lot, and a lot of these names like Jim Paschal, who I might not have known about otherwise, like might have heard him at one point and then forgot him. But as much as we
probably
talked
showed up in some of those books we read.
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing: Jim Paschal, top 10 in over 50% of the races that he had ever been in, and he held the laps led record at 335 until Truex topped it at Charlotte. Yeah. Was that one of your stories?
Oh, wow.
Might have been.
That's right. How many laps? Truex led 488 laps.
It was like 392, I think, was the number.
That's right. It's 400
Yeah.
laps total. He led 388, but he led 592 miles.
Yeah,
Or
geez.
whatever ridiculous math that
the number was
is.
392.
It was a lot.
Here, but yeah, that's nuts. So, I mean, those are the nominations. Holly, what do you think of the nominations this year? Or this round, I guess?
Well, I think Tony's absolutely a first ballot. He's in, just like Jeff Gordon was. It was really kind of nice to be there last night and talk to him. He kept saying how honored he was to be in the Motorsports Hall of Fame, which was what he was inducted into last night. And what he kept repeating was, I'm still racing. How am I?
Yeah.
I'm still racing and I'm not 50 years old. How am I being nominated for all these halls of fame? But then he would think about it and be like, this is just, it means so much. I have to look at it in a whole different way. And I know both he and Dario Franchitti, last night I was speaking to them in particular, were talking about when they're in the room and they're seeing all of these other people that have been honored in the same way they were, to not only hear the names but be able to go over and talk to them and hang out with them. It really is pretty special. And they are young. I mean, they're younger than I am, and they, it's hard to think of them because we have in our mind a Hall of Famer must be someone, who's in their 60s or 70s or whatever. And so I think that's kind of what Tony was thinking. But it was really neat. I've known Tony for a long, long time. I knew him when he was racing Indy cars, and he had just gotten out of USAC and was just starting to race in the Indy Racing League back then. And just to see how far he's come and how well he's done, and to see how humble he was at the thought of being in the National Motorsports Hall of Fame and then going in again now today, finding out, the NASCAR Hall of Fame. It's something that somebody like that is completely humbled over. And I thought it was great. Jimmy Johnson flew from California out to Daytona Beach last night to be the person that inducted Tony, and then flew back to California right after. So, I mean, he literally in one day flew from California to Florida and Florida back to California, all so that he could spend 3 hours hanging with Tony Stewart. And I think it says how much Jimmy thinks of Tony, and likewise, and how important the honor of being inducted into these Motorsports Hall of Fames really are for these guys.
Because I can only think of jokes because I'm just an idiot on here. I'll feel a little bit worse for Jimmy if he's sitting in like row 27, seat B, in the economy class of a Southwest flight from California to.
I don't think that's happening.
No, I'm pretty sure he was in a nonstop 6-seater Lear that probably got from Daytona to Los Angeles in about 3.5 hours and doing 750 miles an hour.
I'm so old, though. I remember when they all had to fly commercial.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really cool. And I say that joke in all respect. You're
it's
exactly
funny.
Right.
It's funny you say that because the guys on Door Bumper Clear talked about that today. Now that TJ Majors works for Joey and he doesn't work for Junior. Well, Joey is a champion and he's won some races, and I'm sure he's a very wealthy man, but he's not Dale Jr. rich. So TJ had to fly commercial home from Vegas or from Phoenix, and there was some jokes about that were pretty funny.
That's good. That's good.
Hopefully he got a direct flight at least.
Well,
maybe Phoenix to Charlotte, maybe. We'll see.
Who knows? Sherwin, the rest of that list, what do you think? I mean, that's a solid list. Here's the weird thing to me. It seems like a list plus Tony Stewart, and I don't mean that in any disparage to Tony Stewart. He deserves 100 times over to be in there. But he's the most contemporary by 25, 30 years of racing.
Yeah.
Almost. I think Neil Bonnet was probably next on that, next in terms of being contemporary. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Tony, I heard him today on Sirius, and he was talking about how he would love nothing more than for Bobby Labonte to go in with him and Red Farmer and Joe Gibbs. He's like, wouldn't that be awesome if that was my class? So we'll see. I mean, there's so many fantastic so many fantastic people to choose from. I voted for the Hall of Fame for several years, and
cool.
It's really an amazing experience just to do that. And I know these drivers and team members and crew chiefs and team, that get into it. It's a huge honor. When I first started, there was no NASCAR Hall of Fame. And I always thought, how can there not be? So it's really great to see the reverence and the honor and to see everybody, embrace it like they have. It's fantastic.
So moving on to third period, Sherwin, NASCAR to begin enforcing pit road speeding penalties during qualifying. Good idea, bad idea, indifferent. It was a piece of news, and I was like,
whatever.
Whatever.
There's nobody on pit road but cars.
Yeah. Do you think this is going to start? How soon do you think Denny Hamlin is going to break the rule? Is the question.
Oh, the very first time out, without a doubt.
Yeah, Holly.
Shouldn't they be enforcing being a little more worried about fighting on pit road during qualifying?
Well, that sells tickets and makes headlines, I guess.
Last week.
Why? You know what? We could save everybody the trouble and just do all-star qualifying
every week.
Style every week.
Oh man, yeah. So, I don't think there's much to be said there. I mean, maybe a safety thing or whatever. Sure, fine, that's fine, and they're going to be.
I didn't remember hearing about a crash on pit road last week. Did you?
Only between people's faces.
So who was in an unsafe position?
I don't know. I don't know if this is a reaction to something or if this is a natural evolution of something or somebody thought this would be a great idea.
I don't know what what wound this Band-Aid is trying to fix is.
Well, it may not be a wound they're fixing. It may be a wound they're preventing, right? Yeah. I mean, that may be how they're looking at it.
That's what I was going to say, because, I mean, a lot of the rules that we have and a lot of the safety stuff are painted in blood. Maybe it's good to paint it in not blood before
be more proactive.
Well, you'll never have a wound if you go back to single-car qualifying, which was way more fun.
I don't disagree with that at this point. Having had this this style for so long, I seem to remember having been more engaged in the old style myself. So
yeah. I talked about this on the Twitter today, and I'm like, if NASCAR is worried about it not being a good TV product to have 37 or 38 cars do single car runs, fine. Do that top, whatever your first round is, do that off air. I mean, if people are paying attention to Twitter, they already know who won the poll before that person actually wins the poll anyway. And it avoids that really stupid situation of the fastest lap rarely wins the poll. Like sometimes that person doesn't even make the third round.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of dumb.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And I'll stay off it from there.
Fourth period via motorsport.com. Juan Pablo Montoya this week talking about foreign drivers coming into NASCAR, and he believes that a lack of dirt racing backgrounds among those foreign drivers is one of the key reasons why so many overseas racers are not competing in the NASCAR Cup Series. And he's saying when you get out of shape in an open-wheel car, we've said this I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this.
Oh, they cross over. You don't get a loose Indy car
right.
Saved up. You
right.
don't.
Yeah, when you get out of shape, the way he said it, this is a quote, when you get out of shape in an open-wheel car and you think you're going to wreck, like you're crashing, that's when NASCAR starts working. Like, okay, this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
That was the exact quote, is when I'm at the point in an open-wheel car that I am crashing, that's where you need to be in a NASCAR Cup Series car. Holly, thoughts?
Well, where do we begin? I think it's sad, though, and I disagree. I think that over time we're going to see more people from other countries come over and give it a whirl. And I'll tell you what, that Euro NASCAR series is very popular that's going on right now, where they race in, I think they do maybe 6 to 8 races in different countries, and that is huge. So I don't know. I think we'll see. I love the fact that Fernando Alonso is given a few things a try, and he teased us all during the Rolex 24 and said he's got some plans coming up that we haven't seen yet. So a lot of people are very curious, would he come and do a NASCAR road course race? And he and Jimmy Johnson are very tight. So I don't know. I don't think we've heard the last from him on it.
I think it makes the most sense for him to jump in either a truck at Ohio or an Xfinity car at Elkhart Lake, and give it a go.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so that's what I want to see. I want to see him do both of those things actually. Right, drive the truck at Ohio, and then drive an Xfinity car, maybe one of Junior's at Elkhart Lake. And then see if he wants to test the waters. I don't think starting a backmarker car at the Roval is the right way to introduce Fernando Alonso to NASCAR.
Yeah,
I think he knows that.
I like many things, see both ways here. I see where he's going with this sort of the car on the edge is where you want it to be in NASCAR, and not a lot of people in Europe or in these some of these backgrounds feel that. But then I would ask him, I mean, look at the natural progression nowadays. It seems like you start in Legends and you move up to, or maybe even, Bandoleros or whatever, and then up into Legends, and then up into, whatever, late models, and then you're into ARCA maybe, and go up from there. That's a natural progression right there, all on asphalt, that people in the U.S. are doing.
Well, look at Denny Hamlin. Yeah. He's obviously made a great career on only ever racing asphalt. Mm-hmm. But you're also seeing a lot of these dirt guys having similar success, just approaching the race in a different fashion.
Right there.
Harvick's only ever raced asphalt, and he doesn't suck, obviously.
And there's a 7-time champion that started racing off-road. That's done all right for himself on the switch. And, you have guys like Tony Stewart, Casey Kane. There was a real, time where a lot of NASCAR's, stars of the time were coming from the dirt tracks and the short tracks and USAC background and stuff like that. Well,
Christopher Bell is already making headway into who the hell's Cup car is he going to race next year. But if you go 2 steps back from him and you look at a little teenager from California whose daddy won like 78 gold medals at the ESPN games, Ms. Haley Deegan, she started off racing basically the same way that Jimmy did, and she's already having late model asphalt success. So.
We'll move to fifth period then. The schedule. We've talked about the schedule a few times, but I was just reading today. There's more serious talks going on about moving dates around after 2020, including a possible West Coast swing before Daytona. The question is, does Daytona have to be the first race of the season, or are we okay with this? Is this something that could happen? And wondering if Holly, whether on the record, off the record, whatever it is, anything that you know about the talks that are going on about the schedule changes.
Well, I do know that is a very big deal to the executives at NASCAR, and I think we're going to see perhaps the largest scale, turnover of the schedule, just completely redoing it. And I always thought, the Daytona 500 needed to be the first race. I think if I were to be selfish and not saying this from a professional standpoint, I still think it should be. But there was a time when it wasn't. In fact, they went out to California and raced before they came to the Daytona 500. So and a lot of people don't realize that it was not always the very first race of the season. So the fact that they are even considering that, I think, is interesting. But I'm really looking forward to it. I'd love to see some different tracks on there. And, we need to shake it up. We need to grow and be willing to be change with the times. And that's what we've got to do. I have a couple of teenage kids, and I know that the way they consume sports is certainly not like I did 30, 40 years ago. So we've got to find what's going to keep their interest going. And frankly, even longtime fans, I think it would be, a huge energetic thing to really shake up the schedule. So I think that's going to be a really big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it has to be first, personally, but that's just me.
I don't know where I stand on it. Does Daytona 500 have to be the first race, Sherwin?
I think the problem is what do we do with the overall length of the schedule if it's not? Because we can't move it up closer to Jan 1 any closer. We can't pull
No,
it.
now
pull
you're
it up.
Super Bowl
Yeah. So
and it's cold.
So what do we do? I think the things that we need to do is have in-region Monday night and Friday night races. If we can figure out how to do that, maybe that's like over the rainbow kind of stuff. I don't know. They already have 2 haulers and 2 sets of truck drivers and 2 sets of cars anyway. They're doing it right now. Why don't they? Do it some more.
I think there's places where it works. Like in Richmond, it works. In Daytona, it could work. In Atlanta, it could not work. It's an hour south of Atlanta. In Chicago, it's in Joliet, Illinois. It couldn't work there. There's there's places where it maybe could work, but they're not going to do a Daytona race on a Wednesday night.
That's a good point in terms of the date. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's in the summer's the place where they need to be figuring out how to do weekday races. What I mean is, how can we compartmentalize the schedule to where 2 haulers can leave with 2 different sets of cars, and then we race within 4 or 5 days of each other at 2 different racetracks.
Yeah.
And so that's how you could get it to where you could run. You wouldn't have to run the Daytona 500. Be the first race of the year.
Yeah.
But, I think, I don't know, starting in the area where everybody is seems like it makes the most sense. Like, everybody's wish list is Rockingham, but we know that's been talked about ad nauseum. But I don't know. If they're going to get weird with the schedule, it needs to get real weird. And NASCAR is going to have to be willing to foot the bill on getting these facilities upgraded to, the safety level that we have in NASCAR now.
If we're gonna shake it up some,
and maybe maybe the investment would be worth it.
So let's move on to recess. Sherwin, you sent me a topic that you didn't want to talk about, and that is Kyle Busch closing in on 200 wins across all.
Everybody has beat that
across all
horse
series,
to
right?
death.
So here's my thing. Everybody's talking about him versus the King and what that means. If we're talking LeBron versus Michael Jordan, blah 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 blah. But let me tell you
F
this.
LeBron too.
Okay, right? Gaius Appius Diocles. Okay, remember that name, Gaius.
Appius
Diocles. Whatever we're saying.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of mouthful.
A Roman chariot racer in the 2nd century AD. We're talking about the 100s, right? Like, he knew Jesus' grandfather. Like,
they had just discovered the horse at that point. And they already hooked it. They already built a race car out of it.
Yeah.
1 horsepower race car.
He didn't know Jesus' grandfather. I'm just saying as far as
no, it's fine.
Goes.
It's good.
We're rolling with it.
Our crowd's good with getting in the ditch. We might have finally found it.
He had a 24-year career. He competed in over 4,200 races, and he won 1,462 of those and finished second 861 times. So, you know what? You can compare Kyle Busch to the King, to whoever, but until you've won 1,463 races, don't talk to me, because Gaius has got he's got the deal.
2,323 top twos.
Yeah. And to be ham-fisted about this.
How many people were in the race, though? If this was out of 3 or 4 guys.
Well, Richard raced about 5 cars back in the 50s.
You know what's funny? So. I'll go ham-fisted with this metaphor. It's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same.
With Petty.
Richard was running on a Wednesday night against 6 cars. And
I won't even disparage Richard Petty's.
No, I wouldn't.
He had to show up.
I was trying to be fun. Somebody's going to get mad at me, and that's going to make Twitter fun.
He had to show up too, which nobody else did. But every time, which showing up, that's a big deal. My point being, if you're gonna compare such different eras of racing, let's go all the way to 100 something AD and compare there.
That's fun.
And talk to me then. Holly, we've got a few questions for you just to close us out before you have to leave. I know you're
lightning round.
The pumpkin, or no, the carriage turns into a pumpkin soon. Is that that's what it was.
The carriage turns back into a pumpkin.
Back into the pumpkin soon. So, couple questions for you. First off, one word question: Sebring.
Ready to go.
Sebring is awesome. Sebring is awesome. It's the very first auto race I ever covered. So, and it's going to be really good this year because the WEC series, Fernando Alonso is going to be racing on Saturday or on Friday night, and then Saturday is the 12 hours of Sebring, and that is fantastic. And I tell you what, most every driver in NASCAR would tell you he would love to have the opportunity to run that. Of course, the schedules don't ever work out for that. There have been some guys that have. I believe Bill Elliott has run that before, Terry Labonte, a couple of those guys. But 12 hours of Sebring is one of those bucket list races you really have to go to.
Are you going to go?
Which I normally do go. I've gone for most of the last 30 years, and I have a conflict with my children having something very important this weekend. So I'm going to be mom first this weekend.
Well, there are a couple of part-time Xfinity racers that are running this deal, right? I thought I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah, there's going to be some NASCAR competitors. I will tell you, I did not open the thing, the attachment that told me exactly who it was, but that's not unusual. They will have people, maybe truck drivers if they're not racing, that kind of thing. So it's really good. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to the race, but
Negative.
It's incredible. It's a throwback. I mean, the track, and there's really not a whole lot around Sebring, and I can tell you that having lived there for 2 years. My first job out of college was in Sebring. So I get a kick out of thinking of all those people that are kind of used to a certain highbrow existence, living somewhere that didn't have two McDonald's in it until about 10 years ago. So I think that's part of it too. But it's one of those racing must-see bucket list items.
Question 2 comes from Danny at Nitro Danielle, which is an awesome name, by the way, at Nitro Danielle. I love that. She wants to know if you had a good birthday, Holly.
That was awfully nice. I did have a good birthday. I had a fantastic birthday. Thank you. I'm a cancer survivor, so just having another birthday makes me very happy, if you want to know the truth.
Hats off and drinks up to you.
Skip
That's
to
awesome.
Jeffries.
Yep, Jeffrey Whitler at Southern_Wit. Thanks for the question, Jeffrey. He asks, I'm going to change his question up a little bit because he says, who was your easiest interview and who was the most challenging interview? For the easiest, I might even say, what was the most memorable? What was the most...
Good call.
Yeah. What was the most fun, or you walked away from that interview and went, holy cow, that was incredible?
Are we talking racing?
Yes.
Racing interview.
Let's do racing and then let's do potpourri.
Well, I will tell you that I loved interviewing Dale Earnhardt. He was always fantastic. He was always started every interview off with giving you a little grief about something. He was a lot of fun to interview. I loved talking to him. So he was definitely a good one. And I don't want to name names, but
sure.
there have been some drivers over the course of the years that were, shall we say, a little bit harder to open up to. And when I first started covering it 30 years ago, there weren't many women doing it. Oftentimes, I would be one, maybe two women at the whole racetrack there. So I definitely went through a time where I could see the look on their face, like, all right, honey, what do you got for me? What's your question going to be? Expecting it to be some stupid question, which they may have found it to be. But there was definitely having to overcome that in the 90s for sure.
That's awesome that Dale would start with, like, giving you a little bit of hell about something, and then now let's do the interview. Like, I mean, that's how me and Sherwin, walk into the room with each other. Hey, butthole.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
That sort of
I've
stuff.
written a story about this, but Dale, I was up when they were testing at Daytona, and they used to do it all the time before the 500, and I was up there, and I had accidentally swallowed a Certs, and I kept feeling like it was getting stuck in my throat, and I couldn't get it out, and I was starting to panic, and Dale gives me this Sundrop soda, because at the time he was sponsored by it, which is essentially like drinking 5 Mountain Dews, and when you're panicked already, that's not a good vibe that you get after it. And I remember thinking, oh my God, now I'm really freaking out about this. And he kept saying, don't worry, I'll take you to Halifax if we need to. But I always laugh about that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we know the carriage and the pumpkin simile, metaphor, whatever it is because I can't say it right either way, is about to expire. So let's close you out on this one. We need a pick for the race so that we can show how the people that we have on pick way better than we do. So the race coming up in California, who would you pick as?
And we only do Cup. We don't mess around with the
Cup.
rest of them.
Okay. Well, I have two names.
Okay.
The first one, I think we're going to see Martin Truex Jr. get his first win. I think he's been close. He's been second twice this year, and he's the defending winner of this race, and I think he's going to get his first win. Having said that, there's another guy, and my friends and coworkers will be like, you always say this, Holly, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy Johnson gets back in the win column there. He's so good there. He couldn't be more motivated. It's his home state. So I say Martin Truex Jr. or Jimmy Johnson.
All right. I love the picks. I went Jimmy, I think 2 weeks ago, and he did okay. Actually, I mean, I say okay. Like, he had a top 10 or something. It was Vegas.
He finished sixth, I think.
Yeah, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So, I feel it too. I feel it too. there's something there. There's some chemistry. There's something going on. This new crew chief combo, it's gonna work here in a bit. I mean, 7-time baby. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that, let's folks that are listening, y'all keep hanging on, but we do need to let Holly go. She's been up since. Who knows?
Butthole 30.
Right. I was probably closer to going to bed when she woke up than when I woke up to when she woke. You know what I mean? Like I was
good for you.
Oh, I was wired. I went to bed within an hour of her hitting the road.
Yeah. She gets up when she got up today when I would call that late, not early. That was late the night before. So anyway, Holly, tell the folks where they can find you. What's coming up next?
Well, thank you guys, first of all, for having me on. I really loved it. I had a great time. My Twitter handle is it's at _Holly Cain, and Cain is spelled Cain. And I'll be writing for the NASCAR Wire Service and loving it, and maybe I can come back on with you guys again. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
We will look forward to it. This has been awesome. Yeah, thank you, Holly, for joining us.
We have this goal, Holly, before we let you go, and then you can hang up. If somebody's willing to come back, we know we didn't scare them off.
That's right.
So
That's right.
I can promise you that you will be back.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys do a great job. It's so nice to have your podcast out there, and I know people appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're flattered by that, and with that, we'll let you go. Thank you, Holly, for being on.
Take care.
Thanks.
See ya. Y'all, how cool was that? Holly was so much fun.
We stretched her out about 6 minutes, but
yeah. Well, she's one of those who's been around. You know,
she knows what's up.
You know, a lot of these folks that we've had on. I mean, even the big names: Jeff Gluck, Nate Ryan, et cetera, et cetera. They've been around for 15 years or so. She's been around for 30 freaking years. Doing the same thing, doing the coverage.
I was going to say, the only person that we've had on the show that is a journalistic type that would have been able to interview Dale Earnhardt Sr. Was Rick Houston. Mm-hmm. That's it. Rick Houston and Holly Cain.
Yeah.
And they both started about the same time. Rick started right around that early, like 1990, 89, somewhere around in there.
Yeah. And he's not really doing that anymore. She's still in it.
She's still deep in it.
You know? Now, and Rick Houston is doing
He's whipping some ass on that. If y'all don't know who we're talking about, the Scene Vault podcast that he does with Steve Wade is
holy bejesus.
Absolutely killing it in terms of NASCAR history annals. You should absolutely go trying to find that deal. It's really easy to find. And then also contribute to his Patreon, because at some point they're going to raise enough money to put all of the original Scene magazines on digital copy online. And that will solidify the NASCAR library, will live on forever in the digital space.
That's right. So, Sherwin, we need to do a little bit of lightning around here. We're already at an hour, so let's try to run through these right quick. A few more Ask PETM questions. Thank y'all for sending all these in. Andrew Cantian at KHANTZIN. Do you expect the playoff teams to shuffle out of the current disposition of 14 of 16 being teams that made it last year? I'd like to change that question. Oh,
I wrote
sorry. How many unique winners do you think we'll see in the regular season?
Well, we're 4 for 4. That's why I thought that would be a cooler way to approach this type of question.
Well, we're Ford and Yoda, and Ford and Yoda and Ford and Yoda. I think we're going to start seeing some
Well,
repeats
that's
here
true.
very soon.
We almost had all of Penske in.
Yep.
But we got a Yoda.
Yep. Yeah, I think we're going to see how many total out of 16? I'm going to say...
Well, out of 26 races, how many people are going to win that are different?
How about we do an over-under? What do you think?
I'm good with an over-under. I'll put a poll out there.
13. I'm saying 13.
13 winners?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. You're going even. So you're not Vegasing it up on me.
I'm not going to give a hook. I mean, come on.
That's an old Vegas thing, y'all. For the gamblers out there, they usually sling a hook out there to trip you up.
Yeah, 13.5.
Well, I'm easily swayed by my desire. But if I think, okay, so we've got Denny, we've got Joey, Brad, Joey, and Kyle. I think everybody expects Truex to win one, so that's 5.
Sure.
Blaney has shown the speed, as with his company, that he's going to win.
Yep.
Are
you going to count 7 more off?
No, you're right. We got to give this up, right? I'm going to go the over just because I think that's more fun.
That's cool.
I'd put a 20 spot on the over if I was at the Vegas window.
I don't blame you for that either because I would root for that, but being realistic there. Let's see, Mick Rose at GoDucks42 _ Mick. What changes did NASCAR make for the 2019 season that you view was a step in the right direction so far? So, because I think that's a great question because we get, we get caught up in, whining and moaning about the changes. What do we think was a step in the right direction? I've got a controversial one.
So what I would say is, I don't know that we've seen any bad results from what they've made so far. So isn't that a good in and of itself?
I think there's a general consensus that the higher downforce is a bummer.
I think the weak motor sucks. I want to see the strong motor at the big tracks too.
So I said that I had something controversial to say. I think the weak motor, I'm okay with it. And it's because of where I've been going with this over the last several weeks, which is now we're more in tune with stock. Now we're more in tune with what you can buy, either stock or crate or something, and I'm okay with that. I think we need to figure out how to use that kind of horsepower and with a different sort of downforce package so that it's not just low horsepower, high downforce, and we're just running on rails all day. But I feel strongly, medium strong, that the lower horsepower is a good idea, and it gets more people into this, and it starts to address some of the funding problems that we've talked about for years now.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you.
It's okay.
100% on the horsepower.
Okay.
But here's the issue I have with it. On the stockroom floor, without aftermarket parts, the Camaro, the Dodge Challenger, and the Mustang GT Cobra all make 700 horsepower. So,
how many of those are blown?
They're all blown.
Okay.
But they're all dual overhead cam, too.
Fair.
So,
fair.
This is where I'm going to not disagree with you, is that I think 550 is a good platform to start with a 5.0, a 5-liter displacement, dual overhead cam NASCAR motor.
Okay.
Which they've said we're probably going to have by 2020 or 2021, whatever that Gen 7 date is that they're going to continue to push out until they figure it out. Obviously, we've said it before. I'll say it again. The biggest thing we're going to face is inventory of all these motors that are really expensive to build that are center cams. Those have to go away at some point.
Yep.
And this is the start of that.
Yep. Eddie Greer at EG3 _ Fast Eddie says, it's very early in the 19 campaign, but JGR Penske have come out of the box strong, winning all the races so far. Yep. Which organization from the two wins, Jeez, Rusty, come on. Which organization from the two wins the most races by season's end? I didn't get any commas in there. There didn't need to be commas in there or anything, but the pausing was weird. Anyway, Sherwin.
Well, I mean, paired at the hip are Penske and KHI. Do we believe that the drivers at Penske are better than the drivers at KHI? Because I think KHI will still Ford wins away from Penske, and then you're left with the JGR guys. What we haven't seen is, well, Denny won his first race in a year and a half or something. Notice how we're not talking about him, but we have to talk about Jimmy. Kyle's going to win his races. I mean, he's probably going to get 5, I would guess, this year. Joey, like I said on Twitter, I think the last thing that people that don't like Joey wanted to have happen was to him to get the confidence of having won a NASCAR championship.
Oh, dude,
and now
he's going to win a bunch.
Race.
I have been more impressed with him than any other driver. If you watch Joey right now, y'all go watch Joey while you're out. I just got goosebumps. Look at that.
Yeah.
If you go watch Joey race right now, he's racing Kyle Busch harder than Kyle Busch knows how to race. Like, he's doing some ish, y'all.
Yeah.
He is making some moves.
Racing hard.
I'm really loving what I'm seeing. And this is because I just love good racing.
Well,
he's doing some stuff, man.
So the other thing I want to tie into this before we give up on this show is that all 4 winners so far that have won are really good at the disciplines where they've won, right?
Yeah,
Denny
yeah.
Hamlin, well-documented plate racer. He's won
Sure.
2 Daytona 500s
Sure.
and a Talladega race. Brad and Joey, tremendous drafters.
Yeah.
And also really good at fast tracks.
Yes.
Kyle's good at everything.
Kyle's good at
throw it
everything.
up.
Yeah, what do you want?
So, I mean, I think the nod there is looking at Penske in that, like, those guys have mastered the ability to use air to their advantage when it comes to winning races. And so if this is a yes or no vote, or one guy or another guy, I'm going Penske, man. I think Penske's going to win more races than Joe Gibbs.
Nice. I'm going math here. Math. JGR has 4 teams. Penske has 3. JGR. We got more chances. We got more, numbers in the hat.
Right. Got more cards in the bucket.
Right.
We got more ping pong balls in the spinner thing.
Because I think and my reasoning behind that is I think they're so equally matched when you look at the names that you're looking at there. Blaney's going to have his, but he ain't going to have a Kyle Busch number of wins. I think Kyle Busch is going to have more wins than Penske. Boom!
Oh,
Boom!
snap!
Regular season. Let's.
Wow. But if you look at those guys, of those guys that you mentioned in that group, there's like 5 of them that have over 20 NASCAR Cup wins.
Yeah.
Between Kyle, Denny, and Joey, and Brad, and
Truex
is knocking on the door.
Close
I think
enough.
18, I think, is where he is.
At this point in his bell
18
curve,
or 16.
he's at least.
But
near
he's
the
got a
top.
Cup championship too, so
Right,
that
that's what I'm
adds like
saying.
5
he's
races.
like up here somewhere in the. So anyway, let's do some new follower shout-outs. Brad Lawrence at Brad3312. He's a NASCAR fan and a muscle car enthusiast, fan of all Team Chicago. So
Chicken in the
Brad.
car won't go, Chicago.
Chicago. Sherwin.
All right, next up is Michelle at Catfight Champ.
That is the best handle that I've heard in, I don't know, 12 months, maybe more.
She is
Catfight Champ.
She has
That's awesome.
dirty whooped another girl's ass at some point, like bad.
Catfight Champ. That's awesome.
Huge Minnesota Vikings fan and proud member of Harvick Nation. So at Lap Traffic will love her, and Matt Weaver. Well, so will Richard Nix, by the way, NASCAR Behind the Wall. And then Brad, of course, you got a new friend in Matt Weaver if you hadn't found him yet.
There he is. So with that, let's gas it up. Going to California, Auto Club Speedway. Sherwin, you wrote this, and I'm going to ask you the question. How many wide can we expect on restarts? Because we see 4 wide there in
I'm hoping
any package.
I want to hear audio on one of the shows next week where a spotter goes,
Middle 6.
Is that 10 wide? Because those guys on Door Bumper Clear this week were like, 2 low, 4 high. I don't know.
Just a bunch of cars.
Just stay in your line.
Yeah, stay in your line. Either go or break, but don't. Whatever it is. Jeez.
Which is, I want to say that I'm going to toot my own horn for a minute. I don't have a huge ego, but I got a little bit of one.
Sure.
My prediction for restarts at Phoenix, especially in the Cup cars, was that they were going to go 6 or 7 wide, and it would be that way for, I said 10 laps. It looked like it lasted maybe about 4, but we still got to see exactly what NASCAR thought we were going to see when they moved that start-finish line, in that the restarts were going to be absolutely bonkers because of people diving down onto the, the spillway there.
Yeah. It's time to do some picks. Sherwin, I know that we need to get the J.J. Watt thing in there. Here's the thing. I kind of lost it, and I'm not sure if you still have it.
Damn it, Rusty.
I know. So, enjoy Junior. So, with that, let's go ahead and make some picks. Sherwin, you kicked my butt last week. Hannah picked Harvick, who finished 9th. I picked Chase, who finished 14th. And Sherwin did the Blaney double down and finished 3rd. So, well done, sir. Like I say every week, do you get to go first? Yeah, you go first.
No. It's best finish is handicapped.
Now wait,
high finisher's handicapped.
I'm pretty sure I went first last week, didn't I?
Yeah, but I beat you last week too.
Bullcrap. Wait, what? I think you're changing the rules on me every week.
No, I'm not.
PTM 185. I'm keeping up with this crap.
All
now.
right, you got it written
All
down.
Right. I had.
All right, let's see y'all.
I had Kyle Busch, who finished 3rd. You had Blaney, who finished 22nd.
And I went first, right?
Did you go first?
I thought so. Because I doubled down. You were like, you going to do the double down? I'm like, yeah.
No, you went. I thought you went second because I don't know. Okay. No, it doesn't matter. I'm giving hell.
It's a fun finish.
We're going to go back and listen, and I'm going to find it out.
It's probably me. You know me. I got a crappy memory. But I always thought the way we did it was he who finishes best goes second. Like, it's not make it, take it. It's the other way.
You're right. But whatever. I'm picking Kyle Larson. But here's the thing.
All right.
Here's the thing. We've had 4 races.
Who did Holly pick again?
What's that?
Jimmy was the second one she picked. What was the first one she picked?
Truex. Holly picked Truex, yeah. I'm saying she picked Truex, and she wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy was there. If Jimmy wins and you don't pick – if you want to pick Jimmy, go for it. But if he wins and you didn't pick her, then we'll give her that one. Or maybe we'll give her the average of Truex and Jimmy. Whatever, it doesn't matter. None of this matters. We're not – this isn't for points.
This isn't for anything, really. It's just it's a segment.
I'm picking Larson. I mean, it's California and Highline and blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing. 4 races that we've had. We've had 2 Chevys in the top 5. Both of those Chevys were Kurt Busch.
That is interesting.
3rd in Atlanta, 5th in Vegas. So I don't know what I'm doing here, but let's see if something happens. Let's see if Chevy can do something. Sure.
I had something in my head. I wanted to be fun with this, but I'm not going to be fun. I think Joey Logano's going to get his 2nd win of the season.
There you go. And that supports my argument before of 13. And detriment's yours on the over of that. But so we've kind of gone, opposite here on that.
Sure.
So that's how we do it. We are inconsistent.
Well, if we only have 13 winners in 26 races, we're going to have to double up somewhere.
Yeah, going to have to make that happen. Y'all, Holly was an absolute blast. I had so much fun having her on. We're going to have her on again at some point. But with that, Sherwin, I think it's time to close this thing down. So let the folks know where they can find us.
Yeah, well, you can find us obviously at PETM Podcast. That's where you see all the Twitter stuff go down. You can find me at Pregame Engineer on the Twitter, at Andrew L. Sherwin on Instagram when it works. We do have a PETM Podcast Facebook. That's not hard to find. The YouTube is a lot more fun, though, like we did tonight. PETM Podcast. Rusty, where can they find you?
They can find me at Tailgate Mayor, Rusty Wallace. Chrissy Gale 4 says Sherwin went first last week, so that is the not make it take it. So I think you're right.
Chrissy,
no,
she likes everything we do on Instagram and on Twitter. She's been awesome.
Well, she just proved me wrong, so I don't like anything she does.
Right, and Rusty now hates you, Chrissy, but I love
her
you
on Twitter and everything else.
P.S. Let me get that G-chat.
Oh, thank you, Chrissy. That's awesome. I am happy to be wrong because it's almost more fun to be wrong than it is. To be
Oh, it
right,
absolutely is. I was almost hoping that I was wrong because my memory sucks so bad.
Yeah. Then I did win because I won.
Oh, hey.
You know what? We'll talk to y'all next week. Thank you for joining. This has been a blast.
Red
See y'all.
cred.
There we go. YouTubers. Y'all are awesome. A minute.
Chrissy,
an
you
hour and
rock.
15.
We are now best friends. We are going on a date. No, I'm sorry. I don't want to scare you off.
Oh, that's funny. Oh man, what a good time.
Did you see what Sarah wrote? Larson, killer of fantasies. That's because they assume he's going to win like 40 races like any minute now, and it's just it's not happening.
I think that's the best analysis I've ever heard. Is because everybody expects him to win 40 races right now, and it's not going to happen. You're right. You're right. I can't say nothing. Track number 185, and it is 2019. It's NASCAR racing genres, and we're going into this. Sherwin, I am in the middle of doing some nerd.
Oh, right. Rusty's got to do
stuff.
all that stuff. I wonder if there was anything in that playbook there we didn't actually get to. I think there was one from.
I thought it read them all
I think you
eventually.
got them all.
Yeah, I kind of had to,
right.
I had to double back a couple times, but
Yeah, that's right. We finished them up at the end. I said jokingly on the Twitter that I didn't want to beat the dead horse that is Kyle in 200, so I thought that what you brought out there with Gaius, Apuleius, Dicoles, Diocles, Diocles
is how I said it.
whatever
You know
in the
what?
hell that is in Latin. That was funny as hell, dude.
I saw his name, and I'm like, I can't say Gaius. At least say Gaius. But it definitely looks like Gaius. So I'm not sure.
Well, so reading Latin is hard because nobody has spoken it for 4,000 years.
Yeah. So you would think it's like other, I don't know, Romance languages, right? So Gaius Apuleius Diocles, something like that.
Yeah, it looks a hell of a lot more like Greek than it does Latin.
Doesn't it? Like the Apuleius. I mean, that's kind of Greekish.
It looks
And
like, you ever play
Diocles,
that
that's
game
like-
Age of Empires?
I know about it, but I haven't played it, but I know what you're talking about.
Because
Yeah,
it'll holler out like names of dudes and be like Laramus, and like he goes and picks berries.
Yeah.
Apodacus, and he goes and picks.
I'm sure that's how they say it too. Apodacus. Oh man, that's awesome, y'all. And we didn't talk about Aunt Becky and the college entrance scam. No, we did not. But
Why would we?
Yeah, that's
Gives a. I mean,
Well, I mean, you say who gives a, but
Let
holy,
people-
but Jesus.
I mean,
there
it's
was
a holy bejesus for sure, but
Right?
let rich people figure out how they're going to beat the system by spending more money, because that's what's going to happen. Just so y'all know.
That's sad and true and sad in that order.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Oh man, but yeah, that stuff. It was actually my wife who works in the University System of Georgia, not University of Georgia, but University System of Georgia. That's who she.
You know what's funny?
Officially works for, and she was the one who brought it to my attention, telling me about, hey, you got to see this. This is nuts. And she knew some stuff that like hadn't been out yet and stuff.
It's like on the behind the scenes wire.
It wasn't like off the record. She wasn't allowed to share it. It was just that nobody's reported this quite yet. And I'm like, whoa, there's some serious-ish. Like, serious-ish. So, yeah, some...
Well, more fun to talk about would be, did you see what happened with Conor McGregor?
No! What now? Jesus
I didn't
Christ.
read the details, so I'm probably going to make up a story on the front end, but I'll know what the back end is. He gronked somebody's phone and got arrested for felony destruction of property.
Oh, come on.
Because the felony is still, the old laws are still written where it's usually $500 or more.
And this is like a $900
yeah,
cell
I mean,
phone.
this is $700 cell phone right
Yeah.
now, which is absolutely absurd. But, yeah, I don't, I mean, like, I'm sure somebody just came up to him and was like videotaping him, was like, bah! But
That's
like,
that's funny.
but how do you not get away after that? Like, how do you get arrested still? Like, And that's the second time he's done some jacked up stuff. All I did, I tweeted over the top of it. I was like, I wonder how he's getting out of this. Because he got out of the other thing.
Oh,
where
the same way you get
threw
out of all
a
those.
dolly at a bus, broke three
Same.
windows, like injured somebody. A fighter that was supposed to be on the card didn't get to fight because he injured her face.
Oh,
And he
geez.
still fought Floyd Mayweather for $100 million. So however you want to do it's how you do it, I reckon.
Right. Right. You know, there was a South Park episode that was very explicit, right? In terms of they were saying, and it had Magic Johnson on it, and how do you, what's the
Magic
cure
Johnson?
for AIDS? And all they did was take millions
Just
of
money.
dollar bills and put it in a blender and drink it. And so that was the like very ham-fisted, heavy-handed metaphor for this is how you beat it, is just with boatloads of money. So I, again, when you talk about South Park, you almost have to put like that. Look, it's South Park. They get to do what they want to do. I don't get to make those kind of jokes because I'm not South Park, right? They get to make those jokes because they're South Park. But the point is, that's funny.
It is funny.
and
it's
poignant.
supposed to be funny.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to hear some science stuff?
Yes.
So, like, if your immune system isn't compromised, HIV is like not even a cold.
Really?
Yeah, it was like the reason why the 80s has this crazy reputation for who was getting and dying from said disease was it was immune system compromised. They were all like wide open, coked out of their minds, not sleeping, reckless behavior,
That sort of deal?
that sort of deal. Like you could totally like get AIDS tomorrow and there's no chance you're dying from it. Like it's not even a thing.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
it's completely eliminated from being a death threat for anybody that eats a salad once a week.
Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible.
Like it's crazy, but it's true.
But it's one of those interesting.
Just one of those things we figured it out and all right.
Yeah. Well,
And we won't get any deeper into that because that's too much innuendo as it is.
yeah, yeah. So, y'all, with that, we're gonna shut down the YouTuber. Thank you for joining. Thank you for hanging out. It's been a blast, and Holly was awesome. It's fun every time we have somebody on who like. Sherwin, I would say like holds her own. You know what I mean? Like they don't need us to try to extract information out of them. They're just ready with information.
Oh yeah, and she beat the hell out of cancer, which means she's tough as nails.
Yeah, yeah. We didn't want to go into all that stuff just because. I mean,
It's not. I don't want to drag her through the mud, but I'm happy to say it now.
It's like I'm not sure how to say it.
I mean, like, don't want to valley the demeanor. Like, we're up. We're talking NASCAR. It's fun.
But what would I?
I mean,
say?
she just
Take
did it on-
advantage of that. Yeah,
Take advantage is a good
of it,
point.
Is
like,
my point?
We don't want to be a parasite.
Like,
and
oh my
she
God,
just talked about
You
it.
beat cancer. Tell us about that. We're not
Right,
freaking
that's
Dr.
not-
Phil,
Yeah.
Oprah crap here. We're here to talk NASCAR. Baby.
No, yeah, we're here to talk NASCAR, and we're here to drink Scofflaw that has they made a beer that says F-bomb cancer on it. Like it says F asterisk CK cancer on their can.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next week. Peace out.
Woo!